Washington minus blue chip American companies. Kings of dark money. Titans of professional football and even a Florida retirement community. They all contributed to Donald J. Trump's inauguration. Together, the donor rolls for the president's inaugural committee, which announced this week that it had raised a staggering $107 million. Take up 510 pages. $1 million checks came in from nearly 50 people or corporations, many of whom have interests at stake in Washington or ties to the government. Smaller checks came in from all corners of the country and nearly every large industry, not to mention from some of President Trump's closest friends. You can examine the documents yourself, but we scoured them for you and found some of the more interesting donors. Friends in the N.F.L. Mr. Trump's flirtations with purchasing an N.F.L. team never came to fruition, and his ownership, in the 1980s, of a team in the short-lived United States Football League led only to antagonism with the N.F.L. But if any bitterness between Mr. Trump and the league lingers, it was not evident on Inauguration Day. At least 6 N.F.L. team owners cut $1 million checks to support the festivities. They were Daniel Snyder of the Washington Redskins, Stan Kroenke of the Los Angeles Rams, Shahid Khan of the Jacksonville Jaguars, Bob McNair of the Houston Texans, Robert K. Kraft of the New England Patriots, and Woody Johnson of the New York Jets. It helps that Mr. Kraft, who was at the White House on Wednesday celebrating the Patriots' Super Bowl championship, is a close friend of Mr. Trump's. So is Mr. Johnson, who is the president's choice to be ambassador to Britain. A seventh donor appears to be Jerry Jones, the owner of the Dallas Cowboys. Although his name does not appear in the documents, Mr. Jones is listed as the president of a corporation that controls a group, Glenstone Limited Partnership, that contributed $1 million to the committee. Edward Glazer, whose family company owns the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, contributed $250,000. But it was not just team owners who chipped in. N.F.L. Ventures LP, a wing of the National Football League, gave $100,000. Not to be outdone, the Office of the Commissioner of Major League Baseball also wrote a check for $100,000. And Marlene M. Ricketts, whose family owns the Chicago Cubs, handed over $1 million. The inaugural jackpot. Mr. Trump's biggest inaugural donor by far was Sheldon G. Adelson, the casino magnate and philanthropist, who gave a record $5 million to support the festivities. But he is far from the only gambling industry magnate to support the cause. Frank J. Fertitta, the chief executive of Fertitta Entertainment and Station Casinos, gave $207,000. Fertitta Entertainment, a different corporation by the same name that owns casinos and restaurant chains, gave another $500,000. Phil Ruffin, a friend of the president's with investments in the casino industry and a seat on the inaugural committee, gave $1 million. Mr. Ruffin teamed up with Mr. Trump to build the Trump International Hotel and Tower in Las Vegas. His wife, Alexandra Nikolayenko Ruffin, a former Miss Ukraine, gave another $25,000. Wynn Resorts, one of the world's largest casino companies, contributed $729,217 in-kind musical performances for the week's events. According to the disclosure, the company was started by Steve Wynn, a friend and sometimes rival of Mr. Trump's, who was also on the inaugural committee. Energy industry support. The donor rolls are almost a who's who of oil, gas, coal and energy companies. Many of the country's largest oil companies, including Chevron, Valero and SP North American arm, gave hundreds of thousands of dollars each. The chief executive of the Hess Corporation, John B. Hess, contributed $1 million, and ExxonMobil, whose former chief executive, Rex W. Tillerson, is now the Secretary of State, gave $500,000. The company has a request pending with the Treasury Department for a waiver from Russian sanctions to allow it to drill in the Black Sea. Reviving the coal industry was a centerpiece of Mr. Trump's campaign, and coal producers gave generously to the inaugural events. The coal executives Christopher Klein and J. Clifford Forrest each contributed $1 million, as did a trust controlled by another coal magnate, Joseph W. Kraft. The Charleston Gazette-Mail reported in 2014 that Mr. Forrest was the owner of Freedom Industries, a coal chemical company that filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection after a spill from one of its tanks contaminated the drinking water of 300,000 West Virginians. Checks also came from companies that support drilling, mining and transporting fossil fuels. Anadarko Petroleum of Texas and Continental Resources of Oklahoma, both oil exploration and production companies, chipped in $100,000 each. Kelsey L. Warren, the head of the company building the Dakota Access Pipeline, gave $250,000. Liquefied natural gas and ethanol were represented, too, with $100,000 from Chenair Energy Shared Services and $1 million from Green Plains Renewable Energy. A Venezuelan connection. Among many contributions from the oil and gas industry, one from Houston-based Citgo Petroleum stood out. That is because Citgo is the American affiliate of Venezuela's state oil company, known as VPSA. The $500,000 donation arrived in December, while the country's president, Nicolas Maduro, was grappling with a failing economy and widespread food and medicine shortages. It has quickly raised concerns about priorities at home. Anonymous donors. Several large contributions came from companies with seemingly inscrutable names, some of which are easier to untangle than others. That is because while presidential campaigns cannot take donations from companies that are not specifically tied to individuals, inaugural committees can. An entity identified as LMCIP, for instance, gave $1 million. It lists its location in the disclosures as the same Bethesda address as Lockheed Martin, the aerospace and defense giant. The ownership and operations of other entities are more difficult to discern. BH Group LLC, for example, gave $1 million and lists its address as an Arlington office tower across the Potomac River from Washington. From catering to visas. Claudine Revere is a principal at Relish Caterers, a New York company that has provided catering and event planning services to Mr. Trump. She donated $1 million. Passing canops can be a lucrative business. She is also married to Anthony Pratt, one of Australia's richest citizens. The American Action Network, a dark money group that regularly spends money to support Republican candidates, also gave $1 million. The group was the biggest donor to a super PAC that spent over $2 million opposing Jon Ossoff, a Georgia Democrat running to fill the House seat vacated by Tom Price, who left Congress to become Health and Human Services Secretary. Mr. Ossoff qualified for a June 20 runoff. The list includes several names more commonly associated with prominent Democrats. One is Scott Bessent, who for years helped invest George Soros' personal fortune. He gave $1 million to the committee. Another is a trust associated with Jennifer N. Pritzker, a member of the prominent and mostly left-leaning Illinois family, which gave $250,000. Ms. Pritzker, who is also a retired Army lieutenant colonel, is the world's first openly transgender billionaire. $1 million came from Nicholas A. Mastroianni, whose family firm, the United States Immigration Fund, is a major force in the contentious federal EB-5 visa program. The program, which allows wealthy foreigners to seek United States residency in exchange for investments here, expires at the end of April. Mr. Trump has not yet taken a position on it. And while residents of the Villages, a planned retirement community northwest of Orlando that advertises itself as Florida's friendliest hometown, were divided on whom to support in the presidential election, the Villages put $250,000 toward Mr. Trump's inaugural festivities.